Stand by. We're going live. We're going live. 10, 9, going live. 7, 6, 5, going live. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to 10 Seconds to Air. I'm Alita Guillen. Today we are talking about money and finances, one of the most important aspects of our lives. In many ways, they define our quality of life and our degree of freedom. Yet the financial information that we get is often biased by the incentives or the financial institutions or the advisors that we talk to. So it's hard to find truly an independent voice or advice. Well, today I am very excited because I'm talking to someone that I have followed through the years. She's known for her straight talk. She's a pioneer in the field and one of America's most influential financial experts, Suze Orman. Suze has found a way to communicate and educate as a television host, author, and now podcaster. Her financial advice is clear and direct. Her work has transformed the lives of millions, especially women. Suze has written not one, but 10 consecutive New York Times best-selling books. She's been ranked among the world's top 100 most powerful women by Forbes and Barrons. She's a 2-time Emmy Award winner and an 8-time Gracie winner. She hosted her own show for 13 years on CNBC. She's been a contributor to the Oprah Magazine for 16 years. And if all that just wasn't enough, she's now the host of the popular Women and Money podcast. I would say she's the best communicator in financial matters. Twice a week, she takes a financial topic on her podcast and gives it to them straight. Here now is Suze Orman. Hi, Suze. Welcome.
Hey, girlfriend. That was a pretty good introduction.
Yeah, I couldn't get, there's so much more to say about you, but, it's like you can't get it all in sometimes. I figured I'd leave some of it to you.
But you want to know what's funny is every time, and I've been introduced, obviously, over the years, now by thousands of people. And every time I hear any part of what I've accomplished over these past years, I myself stand in amazement of it. And I stand in amazement of it because it wasn't supposed to be that way. And that's, I think, is one of the most important things that we can absolutely talk about, Alita, which is how we limit ourselves. We don't think things are possible. We settle for less. We don't think we deserve more. And here we are. And the truth is, not only can you have more, but you can have the most that can ever be offered. Just something to think about.
Wow. No, you're such an inspiration. I mean, you start off inspirational, you continue on. It brings me to the first question that I ask everyone on the podcast. You've communicated so much, so many shows, so many opportunities. What goes through your mind 10 seconds before air?
So before I ever air, or before I take the stage, whether it's for 5,000 people or 100,000 people, before I ever go on TV or I do anything, the thing that goes through my mind is a prayer. And it's a prayer of, can I just be an empty vessel so that the words that funnel through me will be filled with grace, humility, love, and compassion. And may everybody who hears my advice only follow it if it will benefit them. May only the people who will benefit from my products that I've created buy them if it will help them. And that may everything I say help people be more so they can have more. That is the only thing that goes through my head because I truly believe I'm a vessel. And if I plan to say something, then it's already been said. So I want to say what should be said in the moment. And if you're an empty vessel, you will do exactly that.
And has that always been your approach? Even when you started out, do you remember that first Oprah show when you had that amazing opportunity? What was going through your mind then, or has this been an evolution?
No, it was through my head then as well, but especially with the Oprah show, that's a very fascinating story. I refused wanting to go on her show for a month or two before I actually went on her show. Because when I got the call to go on the Oprah Winfrey show, they were looking for an expert on the spiritual side of divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Katie Davis, the producer at the time, I'm not an expert on the spiritual side of divorce. There's no spiritual side of divorce. You take a vow and then you get divorced. There's nothing, you broke your vow.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you should have broken your vow, probably waited too long to break the vow, probably never should have taken the vow to begin with. But there's nothing about that that's spiritual. And I refused to go on. And she called 2 weeks later and said, we're asking you to come on. And I said, what didn't you understand about what I said? Oprah deserves the best, and I'm not the best in that. And I said, Katie, look for somebody, and a month from now, if you still haven't found the person, fine. A month later, I get a call, right? And there you go. And all I remember is when I first met Oprah, I was shaking, and she grabbed my hand, and I was sweating, and I took my hand away because I didn't want to sweat in Oprah's hand.
Right.
She grabbed it again. We sat down, and, she had a minute and a half left in the whole show. My whole segment was like a minute and a half.
Oh, wow.
And she asked me the question, so what's the key to life? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you just kidding me? Because that's not what we were obviously supposed to talk about in that minute and a half that was left. And out of my mouth came the words, because I was a vessel, when you can be as happy in your sadness as you are in your happiness, then you know the key to life. Then Miss Winfrey looked at me and said, we have to do an hour show on you. And with that, she got up and said, bye, everybody, and walked off.
Wow.
And then Katie Davis, the producer, came up to me and said, see, I told you, if Oprah just could see you and talk to you, that would be that. And I went, really? And there you go. That's what started 30 shows, 1 hour shows on the Oprah Winfrey.
Wow. Wow. And that experience, that journey for you, I mean, you started off, you said, I'm not the right person for this topic. And then you go on, you end up doing 30 more shows. As a communicator, how did you evolve throughout that? Did you stay true to that one message? What was your evolution in there?
So my evolution started far before then. My evolution started way back when I really thought the key to happiness was money. And I thought that because my parents were so utterly unhappy for many reasons. My father was sick with emphysema. They had lost all their money in a fire, on and on and on. So I really thought that the key to happiness was money back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s now, after 7 years of being a waitress at the Buttercup Bakery, making $400 a month for all those years. I, through a long process, and landed a job at Merrill Lynch. And now I'm making a lot of money, and now I'm still not happy. So if money isn't the key to happiness, what is? And that started me on a spiritual quest to finally realize you have to go within to see why you do without. Why not only you're doing without happiness, but why you're also doing without money, without relationship, without, all starts with within.
But you do talk about money being freedom and as a piece of that happiness, or no, that's not what you're saying. You say you start someplace else. Like, where did you find your happiness then, if it wasn't through the money?
Well, what's interesting is when you find your happiness by knowing who you are and liking who you are and not wanting to fill up that emptiness within you with a new car or new clothes or new this or new that you never wear anymore or whatever. And you're just happy because of who you are.
Yeah.
Then what happens is you have self-worth. And when you have true self-worth, then net worth starts to build. It starts to build. And it's not to say that, listen, you could have lack of self-worth and not be happy, right? But chances of you being happy with lack of self-worth is pretty, I don't think that's going to happen. You can also have self-worth and not have any net worth. That is also true. But that's true when you're too young, maybe at that point. You're not interested in money or whatever it may be. But usually self-worth equals net worth. So I've also always said, Alita, is that, money alone will never make you happy. But lack of money sure will make you miserable. But you have to be able, so you have to know about money. You have to own the power to control your destiny. You have to understand the laws of money and how money works and all those things, because you and your money are one. If you don't have money in your life, what are you doing to be the obstacle in your life? So all of those things are true. So what makes me truthfully as fabulous as I am, and what makes me one of a kind and the world's personal finance expert, is because I understand what it's like not to have money. I understand what you have to do to change that. And you have to stand in the truth of who you are, because otherwise money will come in, money will go out. So I understand the wholeness of life. Most people only talk to you about money.
Right. So you say you have to find that happiness, you have to find that peace. At what point in your life did you find that?
I truly found it when I was about 45 years of age, when I would always pray for, I want to know my own thoughts. What do I think? Because I would always get in situations, and even though I was making money, and money did come and money left and whatever, and I still really wasn't happy. I was in bad relationships, but I would always ask people, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think? All of those things. And I realized at the age of 45, I wasn't asking anybody anymore what they thought. For somehow, and I don't even know how I got there, to tell you the truth, I realized I knew what I thought. I knew what I felt. I knew what I wanted. Now, that doesn't mean that I got it right away. But what was interesting is that I wrote my very first book when I was 45 years of age. So all of you can think about that. Right now, in about a month, I will turn 72. However, most of that fame, most of that success, most of that came between the ages of 45 and actually 46 when it actually came out, but 45, and I want to say 50, 55, maybe even 50. It was in those 4 or 5 years that such success happened. It wasn't even funny. It was like, really? Really? And so it doesn't take long.
Once you know who you are, once you know your happiness, what it takes to be happy without the money.
And not even with or without the money, it's once you know that you have the ability to stand in the truth, to stand in your truth all the time, no matter if your truth hurts somebody, no matter if your truth isn't the most polite or great thing, right? And that's what I think truthfully attracted Oprah to me.
Yeah.
In that I stood in my truth, and she would always say, uh-oh, here comes a Suze smackdown. Let me get off the stage here for a second. Same thing with Larry King.
Yeah.
I did 30 shows with him. And what he loved about me the most, kind of you experienced with this, in that he wanted to see if he could ever ask me a question that I couldn't answer. So I never knew what the questions were going to be before in our live television show.
Yeah.
Right? I never knew. I never knew what I was going to say when I walked on a stage for the 9 PBS specials that I've done that have all been the number one PBS specials in the history of public television, having raised over $250 million for them. I never knew what I was going to say when the cameras went on for the Suze Orman show. I, to this day, don't know what I'm going to say when, in fact, I do my Women and Money podcast. By the way, the subtitle of it is "And Everybody's Smart Enough to Listen."
I love the podcast, by the way, and I love the music at the beginning and the whole introduction. So you have to tell me more about that.
Right. There's so many things we can talk about.
Yeah, I know.
Right. But when I was willing to stand in my truth,
yeah.
Oh my God, that made me powerful.
Yeah, freedom.
And then the number one law of money came into effect, which is power attracts money, powerlessness repels it. And just to segue there for a second, what's the number one thing that makes somebody powerless is when you have debt, because debt is bondage, and you will never have financial freedom if you are in debt. Now, I'm not talking about mortgages and things like that, but if you have credit card debt, for most of that debt, you are standing in a lie because you bought things that you couldn't afford to impress people you didn't even know or like.
So let's jump for a second into the podcast because you say women and money. What is it about women in particular and money?
Well, what's interesting, in 2007, I wrote a book called Women and Money. And that book went on to be a #1 New York Times bestseller. And the subtitle of that book was Owning the Power to Control Your Destiny. And one of the reasons I wrote it, because as time went on, the Me Too movement came about and everything like that, is that because I am a woman, when I would go and I would give a talk, and there'd be thousands of people in the audience, most of them would be women. And a lot of times I would be a speaker, and it would be, the event was being put on, and a woman would be at the podium thanking all the people that put the event on, because it would be a huge event. And I would notice that whenever she introduced the women that were responsible for doing this, they stood up and they stood for maybe half a second and sat down. They refused to take pride and ownership of who they were. I started to notice, and I mainly noticed this at the Maria Shriver events that she used to do, which I loved, of all the women that would talk about how important it was to volunteer. And then I would go around and ask men if they volunteered. And they go, yeah, we coach our kids, baseball thing or this or that. And then I realized how women put themselves on sale, how they would barter, how they were afraid to ask for a raise, and all these questions that would come up on the Suze Orman show when the women would call in. And I went, oh, we got to do something about this.
Right.
Because I really believe women have more power, intelligence, and ability in their little finger than everybody else has in their entire 10 fingers on both hands. They just don't know it. So it was important to talk to women as to why do they give more of themselves than they give to themselves? Why do they do that, and how do we change it?
So how do you change it? You're talking about financial freedom, financial education. And where do you start with educating women about money?
Reading my book, listening to the podcast. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
You have to understand why women give more to their parents, their spouses, their brothers, their sisters, their employers, their employees, their pets, and their plants. more than they give to themselves. And it's not until they're about 50 or 60 years of age that all of a sudden they go, oh my God, I don't have anything. I've been left. I'm this, I'm powerless, I'm penniless.
I think the dog is agreeing with you right now. Hold on one second.
Is it a female dog?
It is a female dog.
Well, there you go. Let her bark away. Don't take away her power, girlfriend.
Yeah, don't take away her power. Riley, come say hi to Suze. She's definitely part of the podcast, so you'll get. There
That's
she
fine.
is.
I don't mind her.
Big golden doodle. Okay, explain that to her. So you have a lot of power, Riley, and Susie's explaining to you that I should not take away that power. So I'm not going to tell you to be quiet.
Well, but you just demonstrated it. Riley, something was happening that Riley was barking. Yet you, Mama, told her that, no, Riley, don't. Now, if you didn't want to be bothered by that, you would have put Riley in another room. You would have made sure that no matter where she was, she couldn't have interrupted this period of time. So it's just something to think about. But for women, you have to remember, Alita, in most cases, women have the ability to give birth. Women have the ability to feed that which they've given birth to. And so it is their nature to nurture. And with that nature, women don't say what they're thinking, and they don't do what they are feeling. So as soon as you go through the exercises or people start to point those things out to you, right? Women learn very quickly to say no out of love for themselves versus yes out of fear of what somebody else is going to think about them. That is where it all starts.
And that they do the same thing. They do the same thing with money. So let's talk about where to start. How old should you be? I know I've heard you say, start saving. How much do you save? How much of your paycheck? Do you start when you're 20? What's your advice there?
My advice is when you're 5 years old, you already know about money. That's half the reasons that you cry, because you want a toy and you can't get it. So advice is twofold. If you happen to be a parent, you better understand right here and right now, if you want to raise smart money kids, if you want to raise powerful kids, you better understand that what defines them isn't that they look cute and you want everybody to notice that they're wearing this outfit and that outfit. So you dress them and you put this backpack on them. You better start to educate them right now that they define who they are versus what they have on them defines that. When it comes to starting, you have to first, before you even start with how much can you do, what do? You better get a grip on where do you stand today? How much credit card debt do you have? What's the interest rates of the credit card debt that you have? You better start with, are you even happy in it's all right, Riley, don't worry about it. She's agreeing with me. You better start with understanding, are you in a good relationship that you like being in? Or are you in a relationship that you're settling because you don't have the money to leave? You better understand that you have to face your fear, because fear, shame, and anger are the three main internal obstacles to wealth. So I could sit here and I could very easily tell you, put 10% a month away into this and do that, but you won't do it. And you don't do it because you first have to understand what is keeping you from doing that which you already know you should do. You don't need a Suze Orman, Alita, to tell these people listening to you that you should do this, you should do that. You need a Suze Orman to tell you, you better figure out why you don't do that, which you already know you should do, everybody. So to that end, you might want to take my 9 Steps to Financial Independence course. You might want to take overcoming your fears with that course. Hey, you don't want to do that and do whatever. You might want to read the book and take it out of a library. You don't have to buy it. The 9 Steps to Financial Freedom. should look at into women and money. Look at what I have created for all of you to become powerful people, no matter who you are,
Right.
and what you should do with money and what you shouldn't do with money, especially right now.
It's so interesting because I'm looking at the questions, that I want to ask you and whatnot. And then I go back to, wow, well, this is sort of irrelevant to talk about how much money, like you just said, you got to go back to your situation. Are you in debt? And debt, you're talking about not even just financial debt. You're saying debt in a relationship, debt in kind of the situation that you've chosen in life, not living the life that you want, not finding happiness before you find money. So much more.
And here's the thing, Alita, you never find money.
Mm-hmm.
You create money.
Mm-hmm.
You all have to understand that you and your money are one. You're the one who goes out and works for it. You're the one, in most cases, unless you've gotten an inheritance, but forget that, because then that will screw you up in a million other ways. So, all right, so you're the one who goes out, gets a job, you get a paycheck. You're the one who decides, do you invest it? Do you save it? Do you waste it? What do you do with it? So you and your money are one. If your money isn't doing what you think it should be doing, you have debt, you have everything. There we go back to what I started with. You have to go within to see what you are doing inside. You have to go within to see why you are doing without.
Mm-hmm,
and chances are when you feel less than, you spend more than. When you're in a miserable relationship, you go out with your friends more to eat. You buy things. You try to fill up that hole within your heart. So that's in essence where it starts. But once you start realizing that you define your money will never define you.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That what you wear, the clothes you wear, the cars you drive, the homes you live in, your job titles, that will never, ever truthfully define you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to define everything else.
So I want to go to the podcast, because now once you get through the emotional side of that and having a good relationship with how you're going to approach this, I get to listening to your podcast and getting, I know more about annuities now than I ever knew. So thank you, Suze Orman, because that was I was like listening, and with my AirPods, my husband's next to me. I'm like, wow, did you know that this annuity did? And of course, no, but a lot of people won't admit what they don't know about finances. And there's almost this, even if you talk to your financial advisor or you talk to friends, and it's almost like people want to say they know more than they do. There's this either intimidation or they don't want to admit that they don't know. Are they embarrassed? What is it about money that we either, you don't talk about sex, religion, money, right? What is it about money that doesn't allow us to be free and talk about? It's almost like menopause, right? Nobody talks about exactly what's happening with menopause. They all just kind of go about and do their own thing. Why do we do that with money?
Because we're in a lifelong bout of money pause, right? So meaning, right, that it's just something we don't want to go through. We know we have to one day, like with menopause, you're going to have to go through it and things like that, but we don't want to. And then once we go through it, we do everything to get out of it. When we go through money pause, it starts really the day that we're born. We don't want to deal with it. We don't, and really one of the reasons is it's truthfully one of the most important things in our lives. And we're afraid that we're going to screw it up.
Mm.
And most of us have bought the myth that Wall Street has been trying to sell us for years, which is you need a financial advisor. It's complicated. I mean, whoever thought about creating all these little symbols that represent all these stocks and this language that you need an entire dictionary for. So that if you happen to be watching CNBC and watching everything, of course you're going to think this isn't something that you should understand. And what all of you women should understand, if you're in a relationship with a man, if you think he knows what he's doing with money, men are the biggest financial fakers in the world. But yet, part of that problem is you've created it because you've put the burden of taking care of that on their shoulders. They have nobody to ask. They definitely don't understand in this economy what's going wrong. Right? And you, however, as a woman, especially if you have children, you are too busy taking care of everything in your household. And why? And because everything in your household is what you love. You love your children. You hopefully love if you have a partner. You love maybe that your parents live with you or your in-laws live with you. You love making sure that they are okay. Oh, there we go again. Your nature is to nurture. So you nurture that which you love. You hate money because especially if you have young children, how many times have you said, Mommy loves you, but Mommy has to go to work. I hate that I have to leave you and go to work, but I have to make money. Oh, in that one line, you've just taught your children to hate work and hate money. But then in your own way, you also hate money. So you're already dealing with too much.
So reframe that. I want to have a healthy, let's leave people with a healthy approach, a healthy, I'm not going to, defer to a man if I'm a woman. I know that there are all these symbols and I don't understand them. So that's why I love your podcast, by the way. So if people are listening and they haven't listened to your podcast, I mean, you're just so clear and you go through the pros, the cons of something and what you like, which is great. How do we reset what we heard when we were 5 or what we think how do we just reset that and get to where we need to go so that we can be in a good place with this?
Now, with the Women and Money podcast, we have about 425 episodes. Not all those episodes by any means is just about money. The beginning episodes and everything, the equalities of a wealthy woman, overcoming your fears, all kinds of things. So I will always, talk about both sides of the equation.
Yeah, I love that about you.
Personal as well as financial. So the main way you start, truthfully, is writing down what you think your greatest fear in life happens to be when it comes to money. And let's say that greatest fear was, I'm never going to have enough money to pay my bills. And that's what you think about all the time. And you need to create a new truth that is directly opposite that fear, such as, I have more money than I will ever need. Doesn't matter if it's true. It's just that you want that to be true. And then you take a vow that for the next 6 months, you will write that new truth down 25 times. You will say it and scream it out loud 25 times. You will look in the mirror before you go to sleep and say it silently to yourself 25 times. So in one day, you have in multiple different ways repeated that truth. Every time you get afraid, you will say that new truth. And you will say that new truth every single day. You will write that new truth every single day. You will say it silently to yourself every single day and 25 multiples for at least 6 months. And you just watch what happens to your life.
So then you get there, you get to that good place. Let's jump to where we are right now. Interest rates just went up again. What are your thoughts on that, of where we're headed?
So the Feds raised interest rates a little bit ago here now. And I could give you a very technical thing of what I think about it, which is what I did on the podcast a little bit ago and what I will be doing again.
Mm-hmm.
I think a big overall view of all of this, which is I think inflation is essentially here to stay, and it's not going to get down to where it was before. So I think you're going to see inflation at 3 or 4% for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think the days of 0% interest rates and easy borrowing, and where you could go in and get a mortgage and you can get credit very easily, are over for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you even are able to get a mortgage or a car loan, it's going to be at an extraordinarily high interest rate. I think what you're going to see happening is probably at the end of this year, you will see them stop raising the Fed funds rate as soon as they realize that, in fact, what they have done to this economy, they shouldn't have raised this last time, but that's beyond the scope of this because they did. I think that you will see another million jobs be lost.
Mm-hmm.
I think you will see many businesses go out. I think it will still be very difficult to find labor if you happen to have a individual shop or something where you operate it. I think people will demand more and more money. And I think that you will see real estate start to go down. I think you will also see the prices of cars and things start to go down. And I just think if you are going to buy any of those things, what interest rates will do if you have to finance it will absolutely bury you.
Oh,
Therefore,
yeah.
what you should be doing right now is if you do have credit card debt and the interest rate on that debt obviously is variable. Right now, the average interest rate is 20%, believe it or not. That if you happen to be in a situation where you have 0% interest rate on your credit cards and you've just been waiting for a while for those credit cards to, the 20 months or whatever to pass, and then maybe you were going to pay it off or not, you better pay off all of your credit card debt if you can. You should aim for an 8 to 12 month emergency fund.
Okay.
If you don't know where to go and you just want to start, then you should go to myalliant.com. That's myalliant.com. And there you should open up the Ultimate Opportunity Savings Account, where if you just put $100 a month in it for 12 consecutive months, they will give you $100.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't continue with that, it's all right. You're still making 3.10% interest right now.
Mm-hmm.
You can take the money out anytime you want, but that gets you in the habit of saving.
Yeah.
They also have incredible interest rates right now. I call it ladder up. And if you went there, you could get, CDs, if CDs are what you want to buy because they're easy for you, because you're a little bit confused on treasuries, although treasury bills and notes are still something fabulous that you should maybe want to be looking at, but a lot of people don't even know how you buy them. You can get a 1-year CD for 5%, an 18-month CD for 5.15%. I think you should start looking, if you do have money, start looking at locking it up longer.
Mm-hmm.
If you have money that you really just want to make money on, but you don't want to risk it, you might want to look at buying 30-year treasury bonds. This is a whole change in investment strategies that I have, because I think over time you will see interest rates go down, bonds will go up. That was just money that you don't need for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
You would not be waiting for 30 years to get it. You'll make money on it. I think you will see the stock market go down a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere here, I don't know when, but it will. It could go down easily another 20%.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to be seriously careful. But with that said, if you still have 20, 30, 40 years, even 10 years until retirement, and you are putting money in a hopefully Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, 403b, or TSP where you work, and you should always opt for the Roth versions of retirement accounts. Forget the tax write-offs. You'll be happy one day that you listened to me.
Mm-hmm.
Then go into an index fund, dollar cost average, and be happy when these markets go down, because the more they go down, when you put dollars in every month, the more shares your dollars will buy. And eventually what will happen is you'll accumulate more shares when the markets start to go up again sometime in 2024 and continue up. You'll be so happy. Do not stop investing. But if you are going to invest, do not do it by a lump sum right now, meaning you have $10,000, $12,000 to invest. Do not invest $12,000 all at once. Put $1,000 a month in to what you want, or even less than that, and just understand it's going to get rough out there, in my opinion, and I hope I am wrong.
Well, I don't know. You have a lot of experience.
Yeah, experience means nothing at this point, seriously.
Why do you say that? Why? Because you can't predict it?
Given the unknowns that are out there and what's happening and what the banks have invested in, there are so many unknowns right now. Are we going to go to war? Is Korea going to be attacked by China? There are so many unknowns that we have absolutely no control over. That is why I say to all of you, control what you can by getting out of debt. If you're near retirement or you're going to stay in your home for the rest of your lives, make it your number one priority to own your home outright by the time you retire. All of the things that you have control over, take control and do something about it, because there's so many things we don't have control over. I had a whole different financial plan for everybody until SVB went under. Right?
Wow.
So anything can happen at any time.
Yeah.
So there's no way to know for sure.
Right. Wow, Suze, your ability to be so clear, communicate so well, be so specific is just incredible. How did you, I know we go back and you say it's your truth, but where do you think that comes from? What was your house like, as a kid? Were you this clear with other things? Was your mom or your dad a great communicator?
No.
Oh.
They were absent. My father was sick almost his whole life. My mother had to work when I was very young and went back to work as a secretary in the 50s, which women didn't do. Like I told you, they fought all the time. My brothers, who were a lot older, left the house, and I was left on my own, to tell you the truth, in most cases. I didn't suffer growing up financially. It's not like where am I going to get my food?
Right.
But there obviously was money tension there.
But your ability to explain so well and your ability to be so direct, were you like that in your 20s? Maybe not about finances, but other things?
No, I've always been like that. And I would have to say, if that came from anywhere, it came from my father. Because he said things that were like, what did he just say? Like, he let it rip. No matter what he wanted to say, he said. And because my mother didn't really have a voice, because on some level, whatever, I kind of got that from my father. And so I really, sometimes we look at, where do we get that so we can be like that? How do we do that? By asking others how they did it. Alita, we each have our own paths. We each have our own paths. And the goal is to find your own path. The goal is to find your own voice. And one of the ways that you find it is by next time somebody asks you a question and you want to say, no way, and yet you're tempted to say, okay, say no way. Next time somebody is mean to you or you're abused, do not silence yourself. Don't be a silent dog like Riley. You do what? You say what you're thinking, and you bark as loud as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And you let that person hear your voice. Because if you silence your voice, you have silenced who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So start to learn that what you think you say, don't have a filter. Don't worry about hurting other people's feelings. You say it and you take the ramifications for saying it, but you are going to take ramifications because you stood in your truth.
Yeah, goes back
And
to
then you will
the truth.
learn that the truth will set you free.
Suze, you are amazing, and you're such a gift to all of us. And I know that you talk about the gift that you have, who's in the background there, KT, who's not going to join us, I've heard. But
No, she's not.
No, she's
She's
not.
heard every word of this.
But I think I listened to the podcast recently with the two of you. Where she reads the questions and you answer the questions. And you two have such a beautiful way of communicating with each other. So I'm sad that she's not going to join us, even though she can hear us, because I would love for people to just hear you two talk to each other. But you do have
if
a beautiful...
If they want to hear us talk to each other, they can listen on the Women and Money podcast. And everyone's smart enough to listen. And just know, everybody, behind every great woman, there's a greater woman. And they don't come greater than KT.
Aw. Boy, that doesn't even bring her out.
No, nothing will bring her out. Trust me.
Nothing will bring her out. I want to thank you, Suze. You're amazing. I think that you gave us a lot to think about financially, but also just it doesn't include money, which is where it all starts. And I love that. I think nobody else really talks about that. And you know, that's made you incredibly special. And you keep on giving. You had the opportunity. Did you announce that you were retiring at one point, and then?
I did. When I was 65, I left everything. Right? Because I wanted to know who I was. If I didn't have a standing ovation once or twice a day, I wasn't on, all these shows.
Right.
I wasn't on my own TV show. And I wanted to find out who was I. And I found out even more about myself. And so if I wanted to go back, I could. Absolutely. But I love that I have my voice through the podcast.
Yeah.
I love that I'm able to do certain things that I want to. But truthfully, I really don't want to change much and go back and be who I was. I just want to be who I am right now.
Today.
All right, girlfriend.
All right. Thank you so much. And I hope you come back. And I hope we get to see you again. Thank you.
If nothing else, just listen to me and KT on the Women and Money podcast.
We will do that.